being contaminated that way and bring some more excitement in the show. I'm not saying it's a bad show. Just like you, I've watched it off and on since it started. I did like it when it first started, but then after like the third season, I can't watch it anymore because I flip it on and it's basically the same thing over and over again. And there's no excitement. I mean, I like the zombie kill, I like it where the zombies get a hold of somebody and, tear them apart and stuff like that.
Right. And that's the part of the horror aspect I absolutely love. I mean, you could have a little bit of drama in it, but you could turn up that horror aspect just a little more, and they might gain a few more fans back, and they might even make some new ones.
Well, I would think so. I mean, the whole point is it's supposed to be The Walking Dead, and now it's pretty much like, well, hey, whatever. I mean, especially now since Rick isn't there anymore. I don't know if, they are planning, I guess they have made a movie or working on a movie and plan to milk it, I guess, as much as they can. But I think they really need to sit back and listen to their fan base and get back to something, or they should go back and watch the whole series of all the, zombie type movies to get refreshed and what, it should be about.
Yeah, I think what they need to do is take a sit back in a board meeting and just go through Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead, even movies like Reanimator. You could go back to Reanimator and see, the gore factor and the dead coming back to life, and you could see the horror aspect and what makes that scary as opposed to what they're doing with the drama in the show.
Well, it's now pretty much, well, this group of people are trying to survive. There's another group of people trying to survive. There's another group of people who are trying to take advantage of the people who are trying to survive. And then, like you said, they throw in a little bit of zombies here, a little bit there. And it just, that's the whole part. I feel like it's got away from being a zombie type of movie more than, anything else.
It did, and I don't know if they're going to be able to fix it. I hope they can. I still see potential there.
Well, yeah, if they, maybe like you mentioned, if they sit back and watch the sequel of the movies and get, recharged. Now, what was the spinoff of that? I can't even think about it.
It was Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah, I mean, that started out good too, and it didn't take long before it got, I hate to say it, the same way.
Right, and I skipped that one because I knew that's probably where that was going to go. So, I mean, if that tells you anything, I didn't even watch that based on the opinion that I'd already developed of the first one.
I see, if I would be writing those, I know they're going by the comic book, okay? So the guy who's writing the comic book, and I won't even say your name because I don't want to be sued. But you know what? Again, he needs to really go out and get refreshed more than anybody. So that's because they get a lot of their storyline from it. But the thing is, I would like to see maybe the zombies kind of like growing, intelligent wise a little bit, where the back of the whatever left of their brain is, and start maybe, grunting some words or doing some things, or somebody kind of taking charge of a group of zombies and where they have a little bit of intelligence and getting the zombies together, to attack the survivors. And it could make it so exciting again.
Yeah, that would be an epic way to go with that, I think. That's actually a brilliant idea. Just in the sense that, there are still brains in there. What level of function a zombie would have that at, I would have no idea, but I would like to see them develop some sort of societal intelligence.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember which movie it was, but where they were in like a underground base and, towards the end, the zombies got in. And the one zombie, the scientist was working with him. Of course, everybody thought he was working on a cure, but he was feeding them, human parts. But where he, saluted, the one guy And, and actually even showed remorse when that one guy turned around and killed the scientists. That kind of showed like, hey, they're starting to develop a little bit of intelligence here. The guy's starting to remember, like the saluting. He even knew how to pick a gun up, pull the slide back on the 45 and all that stuff. And it kind of gave it a little bit more excitement. So, hey, if anybody out there, is involved with The Walking Dead, talk to your bosses about it and say, hey, you got to take a new, fresh look at this.
Right. And I agree with that. I feel like it could run several more seasons on that kind of fuel.
Well, probably another 4 or 5. They did it, slowly, where they started running into, groups of, or somebody becomes intelligent enough of a zombie to start, being in control of the other zombies, where they can actually attack the humans, and set up, and bait the humans and stuff like that. A little bit more excitement back into it, rather than, somebody's love life or trying to, figure out what they're going to do from day. I don't even know what they're doing anymore on the show. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I watched the last 3 episodes, and I when it was over with, I go, this doesn't even make sense anymore.
Right. And I know you're the host. Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead. I didn't do it. If I did, I'm not going to admit it.
All right. What is the first horror movie you ever seen as a child, and did it scare you?
The most scariest movie, I have to be honest with you, was 2 of them. One was Frankenstein. I remember I was a little kid. My dad had his TV out there where, and he kind of used that to scare me to go to bed for various reasons. But Frankenstein scared me. It was Boris Karloff. And the other one was The Fly. It scared me a lot when I was a kid.
The Fly is absolutely one of my favorite films.
Yeah, I think the original one, it was so much, more awesome than the remake of the one back. It was, in the late 80s or 90s?
Yeah, the one from the late 80s. Jeff Goldblum's a brilliant actor, and I absolutely loved that one.
I don't know. See, that the whole point is like Vincent Price and all that stuff could, I guess, a lot of people have forgot a lot of things. I'm at the age, when I was a little kid, we were one of the first people in the neighborhood, because my dad was an electronic engineer, to have a TV. I remember this TV with like about a 5-inch round circle screen. And, back then they were showed a lot of the horror type movies and Western movies. And that's, and on Friday or Saturday nights, they would show the scary movies. And even back then. And I remember things like The Fly, The Blob, things like that. It were really scary. I'm trying to think of another one that kind of scared me when I was a kid. It was like a big, ugly bird that would, fly around in the sky and attack airplanes and attack people and eat them and stuff like that. But it was, I seen it here recently on Comet TV, and I looked at it and I couldn't keep from laughing how faked it was. And then I was reading when they made the movie, they had a budget, and they either could do this or they could have had a better looking monster. And they chose to go the cheaper route of making, not put the money into making, the scary bird scary.
Well, see, that's the charm of B movies, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the whole point. The budget on those suckers were so bad. There was always the one, too, like the Earth, there was a nuclear war. This group of people would be out somewhere and, near the mountains, and there'd be a stream or a little pond there. And everything in this valley was safe, but everything on the mountaintop and beyond was, full of radiation. And anybody that survived were turning into like ugly monsters and stuff like that. Some of the movies that the plots on them, I have to be honest with you, it was like, hey, they must have wrote the script in a week.
Yeah, there's been a lot of scripts out there like that. The first Toxic Avenger, I think they said that they were, I'm not sure how long it took Lloyd to hammer that out, but it was written in a very short time, and I can't remember the time frame it was filmed, but it was also a really, really short time too. But the movie turned out excellent. The plot line was very loose. I mean, the nerd gets picked on, he gets tossed into a vat of chemicals, and all of a sudden he becomes this toxic mutant superhero, basically. But instead of like actually doing the Superman thing and bringing the bad guy to justice, he would just kill the bad guy.
No, why not? Look how much money he was saving the county.
Right. And he would kill them in such gory, creative ways. So, I mean, it ended up being a really good movie. It was one of those, it was just so bad, it was amazing.
You know, one I see so often on Comet TV is the spaceship goes up, you know, and when they come down, there's like one survivor, the other two, you know, astronauts die. And the guy basically, you know, in a short period of time starts turning into slime and, you know, gets out of the hospital, you know, and then he goes around, he doesn't even know basically who he was. He gets little thought backs, you know, remembering a little bit about himself, but he goes around, you know, dripping, you know, his flesh off, you know, and killing people. And,
the melting man.
Yeah, that one. I
absolutely love that movie.
Yeah. I like the very end of it too.
Right.
But
he does. He ends up melting away.
You mean dissolving away? You know, like
yeah. Well, yeah. I really wouldn't consider that melting at the half point of the movie.
Yeah. Didn't he die or whatever in the alley or something like that? He kind of like was nothing left. Poof, gone.
Right. There was nothing left but clothing.
Now, that's the type of movies I really like. You know, those were at least a little bit more creative than some of the stuff that was put out.
Right. A lot of them have creative plot lines. Now you get a movie where, you know, 5 kids play with a Ouija board, and you never see the ghosts through half of the movie that attack them. And by the time you do, it's this watered down CGI thing that, you know, wouldn't really scare anybody.
Well, again, too, most of those movies are indie movies, and that's the problem. They're shot on a real, you know, low budget. I've had some actors on my show that, you know, have been into, you know, acting in those type movies. And, you know, yeah, you know, I had one actor on it who's been in probably about like 10 horror movies, you know, not playing like the lead, but maybe playing like the third or fourth person in the movies. And, you know, some of the stuff, Nick, when they were making the movie, like he was telling me about it, would scare the you-know-what out of me. Like at one point they were doing a thing in a cave, right? And in this cave, I guess there was like, you know, poisonous spiders and snakes, and they hired somebody to go get them out. And, you know, they're doing their little scene in there with the monster, and all of a sudden some, you know, rattlesnake, you know, like tried biting one of the actors. That, you know, kind of scared him. Or the time they were making, he said, a movie out, an old farm area. And this is down south somewhere. And they had him go underneath an old, mobile home. Well, they didn't even bother checking it out or anything. They just said, hey, go underneath that motor home and then come out and do this. And then he realized when he was underneath it was all these poisonous big spiders. So, I mean, yeah, I guess that would give more of a fear factor, right? Or, you know, in fact, he was telling me like one scene they were doing out near the desert where the director, he thought something was wrong. He noticed that all the other actors were wearing boots, which they didn't show, you know, how they were filming, you know, their footwear. But he noticed they were wearing boots that went up almost to their knees. And he was on this concrete thing, and they gave him a pair of tennis shoes. And he was supposed to jump off. And when he jumped off, he realized it was a whole bunch of rattlesnakes. And then afterwards, he went up to the director because he was really pissed. And the director said, well, we wanted that scare factor to be realistic. That's the problem when you make some of these indie